All right, and we're live, and I'm here with Argent,
Hey,
and Pastor Tom's also with me,
Hey,
and no Luke today, no sidekick Luke. Um, so few things we're going to talk about. Then a little later, we're going to bring John Steele on this show. Um, First thing, we're going to talk about Alabama a little bit because liberals have done this terrible thing of making me start to like Alabama. I'm Because the thing you got to understand about me is I don't like the South. I don't like the South. Never liked the South. Got to be honest with you. Not a big fan of the South. Don't like Southern food. I don't like Southern culture. I'd rather have a tarantula lay eggs in my ear than listen to most country music. And yet, nonetheless, here I am rooting for Alabama. Now, recently, Alabama passed a extremely restrictive abortion ban, even restricting abortion in the case of like rape, and I think life of the mother stuff doesn't even count anymore. Um, Now, I'm not the most pro life guy in the world. I'm not the most pro life guy in these circles. We were even chatting about that before the show. I'm very early stages of abortion. I don't have a problem with it. Certain medical conditions like life of the mother or, some sort of deformity or lack of survival rate with the fetus, I don't have a problem with it. Something like rape, I don't have a problem with it. That's obviously not a position a lot of my fellow Christians share. If I had to draw a line when I call it a person, I'd say, can you show me there's brain activity or not? I also think that outright outlawing it with the way things are structured now, with the welfare state and all, I think would have very, very bad consequences. That said, though, I've sort of moved a little bit more pro-life in the last couple of years just because of the absolute ghoulishness of the pro-choice left. Um, just wow. Um, and I kind of like watching hoes mad over the Alabama abortion bill. But there's another thing going on in Alabama that has left us all mad. So this is off of AL.com, and it's Alabama Public Television refuses to wear Arthur episode with gay wedding. Let's see. Alabama Public Television chose not to air PBS's Arthur episode, including a same-sex marriage. Now, I've never actually seen an episode of Arthur. It came out, well after I was a kid. I think it came out like the 2000 or something. I vaguely remember like Arthur books when I was a little kid. I can't remember if I read any of them or not, but it was something that existed, I believe. But even though I'm a big old nerd and I watch cartoons, I've never watched Arthur because, correct me if I'm wrong, if something's on PBS, doesn't that mean it's like for babies? I mean, that was my
well,
understanding of it. Like it's like Sesame Street or Mr. Rogers' Tier. That's at least what PBS was when I was a kid.
yeah, I used to watch it a lot when I was in like grade 1 through 3, I guess.
I mean, I watch some shows that are kind of like kid shows or something, but those are just cartoons I think are funny or something, but I'm not going to watch something that is aimed at like a Barney the dinosaur crowd, which I would think that's what PBS shows are. Maybe PBS has changed since I was a kid. Lord knows I'm getting old, but I would think that's what they are. Which begs the question, why do we have to have butt sex in a cartoon aimed at babies? But anyways, in the episode, which aired nationwide May 13th, Arthur and his friends attend the beloved teacher Mr. Ratburn's nuptials to his partner. APT preempted the episode by showing a rerun of Arthur. Mike McKenzie, director of programming at APT, said APT was notified by WGBH and PBS in mid-April about the episode titled Mr. Ratburn and the Special Someone and decided to show a rerun. McKenzie said APT has no plans to air the episode at a later date. The article goes on for a while. Basically, the guy in charge of Alabama Public Television shared my sentiment that maybe a cartoon aimed at babies shouldn't have butt sex in it. I know it's a bold, just completely far out there idea,
That's hate.
but maybe open homosexuality in a show aimed for people that have barely learned how to potty train yet. Not a good idea. Just throwing that out there. And I'm hardly a prude. Like, I don't want to go down the Jerry Falwell, let's be a prude about everything idea, you know. But at the same time, can we draw a line somewhere? For the love of God, can we draw a line somewhere?
This is the new thing. If any character is not portrayed as being explicitly heterosexual, they're automatically assumed to be homosexual. And this is something they're doing with a lot of historical figures, like Charles Gordon, who is a British adventurer. They say he was gay because he didn't get married. They say Charles the 12th is gay because he said he'd get married after he fought the Great Northern War. So, like, it's just a thing. So Mr. Ratburn hadn't been shown to be explicitly heterosexual. So, yeah.
You know, the one historical figure, I think, where they, you know, because I know what you're talking about, where every historical figure they want to say is gay. But the one where I actually think they might have a point is Leonardo da Vinci. But
Yes.
I kind of lean towards, like, he probably never really acted on it. But I definitely get the idea that he had those urges, those proclivities. He was a deeply religious man, so I think he probably never acted on it, or if he did, it was like once and he felt guilty or something. But yeah, he very clearly was much more enamored with the male form than the female form in his artwork.
Like, there's a lot of men who just aren't, like, interested in getting married, or they have, like, other stuff they're engaged in. It's just not high on their priority list. But that doesn't mean they're gay.
And you know, there's a lot of characters in, like, cartoons and all throughout the years that, yeah, there was definitely a subtext there that character may be gay and all, but it was just kind of, you know, nobody talked about it. It was in the closet thing. Can't just like yeah, as a little kid, I didn't realize that Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy were clearly fucking. All right, I didn't pick up on that when I was like 9 or 10 years old because they didn't feel the need to explicitly tell me at 9 or 10 years old that. Like, I don't want everything sanitized, but come on, like, can the show aimed at 3-year-olds not have it in it?
Well, you know, there used to be this little thing called subtlety where it's like, you know, the kid may not get it, but the adult gets it.
Yeah, you know, they used to put adult jokes in a family show or a kid show in a way that would go over the kid's head.
Oh no, you know what we didn't mention? How the Archie comics ended with Archie dying to save a gay senator.
Oh yeah, Archie, like, in the last 10 years went through the whole company went through this phase where they decided they were going to be all edgy and they were going to have a gay kid in the class and all this other weird stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that helped to sell comics.
Supposedly, the reason that Mega Man and Sonic comics ended at Archie was it's now come out that was on Archie's end, that they didn't want kid stuff at their company anymore. You know, and the Sonic comic was the most successful licensed, you know, property American comic in the history of the American comic book industry. You know, that comic went on for almost 300 issues and had multiple spinoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't even get a proper last issue.
Sorry, so are the Sonic comics gone now?
There's Sonic comics at IDW, but they have nothing to do with the old Archie continuity. They had, like, Princess Sally and all that stuff in it. It's just like generic stuff based on the games.
Wow.
Yeah, it never even got a proper end. It was a damn shame.
I never read any of them, but they're one of the few comics I hear about I heard about on a regular basis.
They sold pretty well, especially when they and the Mega Man comic at Archie sold pretty well too, and they did a couple of crossovers between the two comics that sold extremely well. So yeah, here I am rooting for Alabama. I don't want to be doing that, but there we go. Alabama proving you can turn the clock back a little bit. And maybe we're not going to have a gay wedding in a show aimed at 3-year-olds.
I don't know. I just think it's hate.
Yeah, it's hate. It's hate speech.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not willing to show your 3-year-old fisting Fireman 9, you're clearly a bigot. All right, so moving on. Let's talk about what's going on over at the Roosh Forum, shall we?
Yeah. That's the big story.
Yeah, the big story of so Roosh for a while has been moving in this really he's been finding religion, and of course he's been moving in a very borderline autistic, hyper trad Catholic way. And I want to find just send a link for Tom here. What? Let me find the actual.
Do you always find that like they never just go, "Oh, I'm going to become like just Christian"? They always have to go like Sedeve contest, like ultra trad, Latin mass.
It's an outfit. I got to be real here. Like, look, we're going to go over this some, but I'm just going to put cards on the table. And I say this to someone, I don't dislike Roosh. I've never disliked Roosh. I don't really know him personally. He was my boss over at Reaction. He was a great boss. All my interactions with him have been extremely pleasant. I don't know if he'd even remember who I am, but he's never been anything but kind to me. I don't dislike Roosh. And I feel like I have to say that because, you know, some people take things really personally and flip out. And I don't. I would hope he's a big boy if he hears this and he doesn't flip his shit. But I don't believe Roosh has found God. I believe Roosh has found religion. I believe he's very sincere in the fact that he's found religion. But that's not the same thing as finding God. All right? You know, the Pharisees had a ton of religion, and they didn't recognize God when he literally stood right in front of them. So that's just cards on the table. This, you know, a lot of people will say like, oh, is this a money-making scheme? I don't think it is. I think he's very sincere in this. He's very sincere about what I don't believe is a true faith.
Did he say what denomination he's joined? I mean, is he like Roman Catholic? Is he Methodist, Lutheran? I mean, like, has he said
he's
that?
Armenian Orthodox because that's his background.
Okay.
He's either Orthodox or Catholic. You know,
I mean, Armenian Orthodox is actually its own thing. It's Oriental Orthodox. It's not the same thing as Eastern Orthodox, but I think that's what he said. But it was like Catholics who apparently got him to convert or something like that.
I don't know. Look, and I know my Orthodox and my Catholic fans are going to be like, you know, and friends and all are going to be mad at me for saying this, but honestly, half the time I can't tell the difference between y'all. Like, half the time y'all seem like the aliens in Star Trek where like half your face was black and half your face was white, arguing with each other. You know, from my humble Bible believing, actually, you know, a form of Christianity that doesn't have the grace gutted out of it kind of religion, half the time, you know, the Orthodox are the ones that dress like Dungeons and Dragons wizards. That's about the only real difference I can pull half the time out of y'all. All right, so, and I'm pretty sure the Orthodox aren't diddling kids. So, all right, so
at least not as much.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be as rampant if they are. They're either they're not doing it or they're way better at covering it up. So over at the Roosh Forum, and I don't really post at the Roosh Forum because I'm not a closet homosexual or fed. But over at the Roosh Forum, we got, pardon me, sorry, I'm still getting over a bit of a cold here. So I'm sniffing like DSP. Due to my recent turn of faith, my sense of morality is becoming based on the Bible. I've stopped I've stopped a lot of behaviors that I've used to do, and I am in the process of making other changes. I've also realized the majority of my publishing materials and online platforms lead men into sin and enable them to partake in sin. I no longer want this to occur, so I'm implementing 2 new rules on the forum that are effective June 1st, 2019. Rule number 1, you can no longer discuss fornication or premarital sexual activity. He goes into greater detail, things you can discuss. Meeting women with the intention of entering a relationship with them, attracting women, going on dates, how to enter relationships, using technology to meet women, how to maintain relationships, sexual activity while married. Things you can no longer discuss. Meeting women with the intention of fornicating with them, how to bang. Physical intimacy with women you're not married to beyond the act of kissing. Maintaining relationships with multiple women, i.e., spinning plates, cheating on significant others, adultery, using technology to fornicate, discussions of travel destinations, which are best for fornications, stories of sexual activity while not married, promoting masturbation, oral sex, anal sex, etc. I'm not sure if the anal and oral sex while married counts. I don't know. Can you talk about getting a BJ from the wife?
My understanding is he's banned that as well.
I think so too. So no BJs from the wife. There you go. You can no longer use rule number 2, and this is the really gay one. You can no longer use pornographic or vulgar language. Refrain from terms like, quote, I fucked her, or, quote, I want to fuck her, unquote. Do not describe sexual encounters or situations that are beyond the act of kissing unless you are married, or unless those are apparently oral sex and you are married. Refrain from using profanity if a cleaner word would suffice. These rules will cause great change to the forum. The above no shit. The above 2 rules will mostly apply to the game and travel subforums. I know that I may lose some of you because of these rules, but I can no longer help me lead men into a life of sin because doing so was weighing on my conscience. I created this forum in 2008 to help men fornicate. I don't know if it's possible to retrofit it for another purpose, but it's worth a try. In the meanwhile, I will gradually lock threads and break these new rules if they become active. The fully updated rules that new members see is sticking in the everything else forum. It can be viewed here. So there we go. No bad words on Roosh's Christian Minecraft server. Oh.
Now, something that's bothered me for years is like all these like trads who defended Roosh. Like, I mean, back when he was like actively like publishing his bang books, they'd be like, "No, Roosh is based. Roosh is the best. I'm a traditional Catholic, but I love Roosh," and that always really pissed me off. So, and I kind of feel like this retroactively justifies all of that, like. Because that was kind of always an issue I had with people like Irini, how they were like, "Oh, I'm a trad Catholic, but Roosh is my main man." I don't know. I just found it annoying.
I never really had a problem with Roosh, and I guess I really don't even now. I mean, he's a public figure doing stuff publicly, so I'm commenting on it. But I like I said, I don't care. I don't use this forum, so it's not like, oh no, I can't be on the Roosh forum anymore. Watching anonymous Bosch do fucking Fed posting. What am I going to do? But it just, here's what gets me about it. There's a certain arrogance to this where it's like, okay, I'm going to start banning people for not adhering to this moral code that I just adopted 5 fucking seconds ago.
Yep.
And you ever see like the Star Wars Family Guy parodies? There's a line in the one where like Chris is Luke and Peter's Han, where like Luke is all like, "You don't believe in the Force, do you, Han?" And Peter's Han is like, "Oh, that thing you just found out about 3 minutes ago and now are judging me for not believing in." And that's pretty much what this strikes me as.
I just like to announce all comments making fun of China or Venezuela or talking about Dune or Game of Thrones on my channel will result in an instant ban.
Yeah, I'm gonna ban people on my Discord who talk about comics or video games or even just my show, because why not?
And you're gonna only post it once and not post it anywhere else.
Now, here's something else interesting. Now, somebody on my Discord was telling me that, okay, Roosh is going on an absolute banning streak. Everyone in the comments, that some people are telling him to go fuck himself. Some people are just criticizing him, and supposedly he's just banning people left and right. Well, a bunch of refugees from the Roosh forum apparently started a new forum, which Roosh is now monitoring that new forum and banning people from his forum who criticize him on the other forum. That's some pretty gay stuff right there.
So you're saying he's running gay ops?
Somebody on my Discord claims he was banned from the Roosh forum for criticizing Roosh on a completely different website. I can't confirm that, but that's what people are telling me. Holy shit. This just doesn't strike me. And you know what else I don't like about this? This really feeds into all the people that say Christianity turns you into a pussy cuck. I really don't like that. Like,
doesn't it kind of seem like virtue signaling? Like,
yes.
Oh, I'm adopting all these like strict things, and fuck all of you guys because you're not going as hardcore as me.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. This isn't him adopting this for himself. This is him adopting it for. This is everyone. You will be banned if you do not adhere to this moral code I just adopted 3 seconds ago.
Yeah.
And look, I get it. I get he's not happy with, like, trying to play devil's advocate here, no pun intended. I get, okay, he's not happy with, you know, what he's built up now with his new outlook. But this is not a way to go about things.
Well, I mean, I'll play
devil's advocate. There are people who have, like, let me put it this way. Roosh, if indeed he found God, and I'm, press X to doubt on that, as I said, but he did so because he pulled a King Solomon and followed hedonism to its logical course and found it empty. And now he's decided, well, screw everyone else who isn't quite as far along on that road.
Okay, on the other hand, though, and like I said, I'll play devil's advocate on this. Is it not his forum? Again, so aside from the other thing where he's banning people who go to the other website, fine. I mean, I will agree on that. But in terms of his forum, can he not set the rules on his forum?
Well, he was so busy wondering if
can he or can he not set the rules on his forum?
Of course he can.
Okay, so then if
and I can sit here and laugh at it.
Oh, yeah, you can. But I mean, there's a difference between you saying, okay, well, I think this is stupid, that's not going to work out, versus, well, he's screwing these people over. I don't think so.
I think he is kind of screwing over his fans a little bit here.
Not in changing. I mean, again, he's had a change. Let's assume that he has had a change of heart here. He's had a change of heart, and he's changing something that he manages, that he's in charge of, that reflects on him to reflect that change of heart. And so the people there, they can either, stick with it and say, okay, well, we're going to stick here, or they can go somewhere else and then they can criticize and they say, well, we don't like the change.
Well, yeah, it's not a question of what nobody's saying he can't. I mean, I can take all my money out of my bank account right now and put it in a big pile and burn it. I mean, I can do that. Nobody's going to stop me. It doesn't mean it's not stupid and insane.
Okay, but I guess if he feels this way and he feels like, okay, he runs this forum, he's managing this forum, so to a certain extent, he is responsible for what's happening there, right? Would you agree with that? That to a certain extent, he's responsible for what happens on that forum that he manages?
I don't look. The way I look at it, I don't consider myself really all that responsible for everything that goes on in my Discord, for example, because I like people having free range.
But you don't really manage your Discord per se. But I mean, even if somebody was like, going to start doing threats or something, I mean, if someone was like threatening somebody, you'd feel the need to ban that person, right?
I feel a little bit of responsibility for what goes on in there, but for the most part, I don't. I'm not the kind of guy who wants to take responsibility for what other people say.
Okay, but if Roosh feels differently here, and he feels like, well, again, he said that this was weighing on his conscience here, that he doesn't want to, he feels like that through this platform, he's leading other people into sin. So is he not allowed to change the rules of his own forum to accommodate that?
Nobody's saying he's not.
Well,
I'm not saying he can't do this.
Is there anything unbiblical about what he's doing? I mean, talking about it from a Christian moral standpoint, is there anything here that he's saying that's a violation of Scripture?
again, nobody's saying he can't do it. I'm talking about whether or not this is a good idea, whether or not he should.
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
well,
gonna.
do
is it a
whatever
good
he
idea?
wants.
But
I
how
mean,
do
this
you
is like
define
the
good
argument I
idea? Do
had
you
with.
mean good idea in terms of monetarily a good idea? Good idea in terms of he's going to get lots of views, or good idea in terms of good for his conscience?
Well,
I mean, for example, if somebody is in the porn industry and then they, come to the faith and they say, "We, gosh, I can't participate in the porn industry anymore." That's not going to be good for them monetarily, right? Because that's how they'd made a profit up until that point. But it might be better for their conscience because their conscience is burdened by the fact that they're producing porn.
Roosh isn't in the porn industry. Roosh is
No, it's an example, though. That's what I'm saying here. Is that okay? Again, it's an example of how good. It depends on good for what, though. So yes, this may not be the best for his forum, but if this is the best for his particular conscience.
Here's my point. I don't believe that this is any sort of a. Let me put it this way. I don't believe this is any sort of a good witness. Okay, I believe that this is throwing all these people that he's led into this forum, and we're going to have honest discussions about the nature of women and all this other stuff. I believe he's throwing them under the bus, and I don't believe that that's any kind of a good witness for these people. A good example of this is I just saw this a couple months ago, so it's fresh in my head. But when Kirk Cameron got saved, what was that show he was on in the 80s?
Growing pains?
Growing Pains. When he got saved, when he was on that show, he decided that he was going to decide what his character did and all this other stuff, and he basically tried to derail the show in a lot of ways because he felt bad that his character was sleeping with his girlfriend or stuff like that. And okay, yeah, he felt bad about that, but he was also derailing a show in which many other people had their livelihoods tangled up in, and really, he was just sort of being an asshole to everybody else. I figured life out now because of my new conversion, and I'm going to tell everybody how the hell they're going to be.
Well, I would say
that's not a good witness.
The difference there, though, I would say between that and the situation with Roos, though, is that Kirk Cameron was not in charge of the show. He was not the director. He was an actor within that.
Okay,
Moreover, is that again, Roosh is in charge of this forum. It's his forum.
No, just hang on. Again, nobody's saying he can't do it. But let's say Kirk Cameron was in charge of the show, right?
Okay.
And let's say he completely runs the show into the ground with his spurgy, overzealous stuff and just, wrecks the livelihood of everyone else involved in that show. And now they got to all find new work and all this other stuff. Do you think those people are going to have any kind of good impression of Christians? Or are they going to think those people are going to think, oh, Christians are a bunch of overzealous cuck assholes and I don't want anything to do with them?
Well, by the same token, though, if he says nothing, what's kind of impression does it give of Christianity if he sits there and says, well, yes, I'm a Christian, but I completely endorse my character sleeping around, even though, Scripture is against that. I completely endorse a show that is promoting that, even though Scripture is against it. So I see no inconsistency whatsoever here. So people could say,
I don't think you endorse what your character does when you play a character.
And that's why the difference between him being an actor on the show versus this being Roosh's forum makes a difference. When he is his forum and he allows these things to go on, in a sense, that is him endorsing it. Unless he's going to say, you know what, I take a complete hands-off approach of it, which he's not doing. He just says, people can do whatever they want here. Again, if he's going to take any kind of responsibility for what goes on in his forum, then that becomes an act of endorsement at that point. And so he's saying, well, I'm a Christian, but I'm perfectly okay with people using my forum to discuss these things that, my faith is against.
Okay, I just want to establish do you think it's okay if social media platforms ban anyone they disagree with politically?
Sort of depends on the social media platform, because there are certain ones that have become sort of more public squares, like Twitter and Facebook. They have become such a monopoly that to ban people from that is the public square. But in regular websites and things like that, to where it's not as public, it's there. Personally, no, I don't see a problem with that. I think it's their particular thing, so they can do that.
I think you have a social contract of sorts when you've run something for years a certain way, and then you immediately just change on a dime, and I think you do owe something to the people, especially if these are the people who have been your livelihood over a lengthy period of time. If you've cultivated a certain audience, they've financially supported you, and then with no transition, you just immediately change.
But is he not giving a transition? I mean, he said these rules haven't even gone into effect yet. They're going in effect June 1st. Even today, it's still May 25th.
Yeah, but he's already banning people for criticizing his rules on other sites.
Well, again, I disagree with that. I can agree that I'll disagree with that. But in terms of this particular thing, again, he's giving the time there. Besides, there are other instances where, you know, those types of contracts do happen because things like that in real life do happen. I mean, you know, people are working at a restaurant. They might work at a restaurant for a long time, and then one day the restaurant's no longer there. But this is something that's slightly different. He's had a big change in his life. Again, let's assume that his conversion is genuine here. Assuming that it's genuine, okay, that's a major change, and so he is, you know, changing the forum to reflect that. And he's giving people time. He's saying, look, these rules are going to go into place June 1st. So if you need to go to somewhere else to talk about this stuff, that's fine. Now, again, like I said, yes, I disagree with him banning people who are on other sites that are criticizing him. I think that's ridiculous. I think that's him being overly sensitive.
Sorry, I was looking at the chat there for a second. Well, like I said, I don't think any of this comes off well. I don't. This just strikes me as, you know, he had his fun. Now he changed his mind and piss on everyone else.
Well, I guess for me, I don't see anything in here that's specifically, you know, judging anybody else other than he's saying, I'm not going to let you do that here. He's not saying, you know, you're a bad and wrong and terrible person if you do. He's saying, you know, my sense of morality is becoming based on the Bible. I've stopped behaviors, and I'm in the process of making other changes. I've also realized the majority of my published materials online lead men into sin or enable them to partake in sin. I no longer want this to occur, and so I'm implementing 2 new rules in the form that are effective. He's not saying, you know, you are bad and wrong if you do these things. He's not saying, you know, how you guys are horrible or terrible. He's just saying, you know, look, these are how I feel about these moral issues. You know, I don't want to endorse this on this website, and so that's why I'm making these rules. And he doesn't want to lead other people, you know, again, what he's considering sin here based on his sense of morality. So I don't know how he's, you know, yes, he's changing his website. I understand that people have come there for a long time. I can understand them being upset about that. Like I said, that's why I disagree with him banning people who are going to other places and criticizing him for it. I think that's him, you know, he should see that coming. That's him being overly sensitive. But in regards to this move right here, so what?
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say he can't do it. It's, you know, it's not a question of can he do it. It's a question of, you know, should he do it? It's what I'm sitting here arguing. And no, I think it's a terrible idea.
Okay, so why do you think it's a terrible idea?
Like I said, Roosh came to his faith through a certain path, and now he's basically blocked off that path. You know, no.
Chris?
Sorry, I got distracted there. I'm at a loss. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah.
I mean, for me, again, I see this, you know, very similar to other cases. I mean, if somebody, again, granted, it's not the exact same thing. I just point out the example to, demonstrate the change though. But if somebody was, buying and selling people, they were a slave trader, and then they come to the faith and they say, well, I'm not going to participate anymore. That's going to affect the people around them. That's going to affect their livelihood. And again, that's closing off a path that other people had used for that time. But since it weighs on that person's conscience to be buying and selling people, then they're not going to do that anymore. And they're making the changes for that. If they had let's say they had a restaurant where these things took place, right? Where, he would allow people to use his restaurant to make these deals for buying and selling people. And then he becomes a Christian. He says, well, no, I don't think that this is right. So he says, I'm not going to let you use my restaurant for this anymore. And I guess the thing is okay, if that's wrong, and then we also agree though that, well, premarital sex is wrong, and maybe not to the same degree as slavery. Okay, we'll say, so maybe slavery is more wrong, but premarital sex is wrong, and talking about those things are wrong. So then, okay, so I guess I'm just not really understanding here the complaint that, okay, well, Roos is saying, on my website, I'm not going to let you do that, to do these things that, I think are wrong, even though, yes, this website has originally been used for that purpose, because he's different now. And so the website's reflecting how he's different.
We're talking about a forum where people are supposed to be exchanging ideas. And now, okay, now there's a whole side of ideas that it's just not going to.
Okay, but I mean,
you're not going to be allowed to voice yourself here.
But this is not like this is a forum where it's like, they're discussing, the morality of abortion or something. He said, well, no, if you're for abortion, I'm not going to let you on here. That's different from, what they're talking about. And what he's saying here is meeting women with the intention of fornicating with them. In other words, how do you, persuade other people, and writing about how you've persuaded other people to, sleep with you. I mean, it's a little bit of a different thing here. So, I mean, just placing it in the vague category of ideas as if this is some sort of, lofty, place here where people are talking about. No, I mean, it's talking about, how do you hook up with a woman?
Isn't that kind of, though, like, I'm not even agreeing or disagreeing, but isn't that kind of like how people just bring the Holocaust up, like, for anything? Like, just taking the most extreme example possible to try to shame your opponent? Like, I don't get how not, like, so is the argument that there's a moral equivalence between getting out of the slave trade and censoring your forum?
No, the difference here is that someone is doing something, then they have a change of heart, and they realize, they, for whatever reason, okay, they think, okay, I shouldn't be doing this thing that I'm doing, and so I'm going to stop. And if they had a place, like in my example, the guy had a restaurant where he was allowing slave trade to go on. He said, well, no, you're not going to use that restaurant anymore. In the same way, Roosh here is, not saying, well, I'm not going to let you use my forum to talk about, how to hook up with a woman anymore. So, right, he had a forum. This is what was happening here. Now he's had a change of heart. He feels like these things are wrong. They're sinful. And so he's not going to allow his forum to be used for that. This isn't to try to shame Bechtloff or anything like that. And again, I said that from the beginning. I said, I'm just using this example for clarity, not for any other purpose.
I'm going to be honest. For my part, I don't like Roosh. I've never liked Roosh. It irritated me a lot how many supposed traditionalists and social conservatives have shilled for him for years. And so I just admit it's not even necessarily a moral principle. I just think that this is virtue signaling. I don't think it's anything.
I mean, fair enough. And I mean, really and truthfully, this is the first words I've really honestly read from the person. I've never been to the Roosh forum in my life. The only time I ever saw a video from him is like way back when he got banned from a country and everybody was talking about it, and they would play clips of him discussing how he was banned. That's really all that I know about this. So, I mean, when I'm talking about this, I'm just, again, if there's a larger context, and that's why I'm not making any, judgments about his faith, because I don't know much about this person beyond that, aside from, again, he was a pickup artist, and I just know that from when people were talking about him back when he got banned from some country.
Well, again, setting aside whether or not he can do it, because nobody's saying he can't. Okay, yes, it's his form. He can do whatever he wants. Okay, but he has essentially thrown out all the non-Christians. That's what he's done here, because nobody that isn't a Christian is going to want to come to the dating advice site to hear, to abide by these rules. He's thrown out everyone essentially that isn't some sort of trad Christian off of this website.
Okay,
And
well, I would disagree with that.
Is that any kind of outreach? Wouldn't a better idea to be advocating for why this new belief system is better on your forum than, okay, well, everybody who's not on board with this, you can go piss off, because nobody wants to go to the game forum to talk about how to hold hands with a girl on the first date. Nobody, at least that isn't some sort of trad Christian, is going to want to do that. So whether or not this ends up making his numbers go up or down, who cares? I don't know. Like I said, I don't use the forum. He's told a large segment of his audience to go piss off. How do you think those people now feel about Christians? As I said, what kind of witness is that? Now you could have done this some sort of gradually thing, or you could have just sort of said, I don't know. You could have phased this stuff out. No, it's just, this is how it is going to be now, where we're not going to do the thing that everybody came here to do anymore.
Bechtloff, John Steele is saying you banned all the Catholics from your server.
Well, you're a Catholic. I got on. No, I got Catholics on the server.
Yeah, I don't remember when that happened.
Yeah, I didn't ban all the Catholics on the server. And I didn't say you're not allowed to promote Catholicism on the server anymore. I just disagree. I haven't banned Mary worship on the server.
I guess just for me, it's not necessarily about any of the. I just get tired of I don't know, just some of these people, like people in these spheres, hold up as heroes, and all these people are like fawning over Roosh now and saying like, "Oh, he's great. We have to ignore everything he's done." Like, I don't know. I'm just not as forgiving, I guess, as a lot of people, to be honest.
Like I said, from my standpoint, this is not a defense of the person Roosh, because I don't know him. I'm not making any judgments or anything like that. But again, I guess what I'm arguing here, just in one sense, to play devil's advocate, make the conversation interesting. But then on the other hand, though, I don't see this as him telling people, forget you, screw off, that kind of thing. I think this is him saying, you know what, he's had a change of his mind. At least that's what he said. Assuming that this is a legitimate thing based off of what we're seeing here, he's had a change of heart, and he feels that he doesn't want his website to be used for things that he doesn't agree with, that he thinks is wrong.
Oh, mind you, I don't question the sincerity of his heel turn here. I just, in some ways, I guess I question the validity of it. As I said, he strikes me as someone that's more found religion than God, but that's a whole different topic. So no, I'm not sitting here like, oh, this is all. I'm not one of these guys that thinks this is all a scam and he's just trying to make money. Because if it is, this is the worst plan ever to make money.
Like I said, and to me, again, he can, again, barring other, social media platforms that have sort of become like public squares, and again, promote themselves as to be open-ended. He's changing the rules here. If Twitter came out and said, we're going to change things and no conservative stuff, I don't know, again, because of how it is right now. But again, at the same time, though, he is giving people time to move to other places. So, and this is from what I've seen, just from what I know, I could be wrong, but it sort of seems to be sort of a specific forum for a specific purpose that he disagrees with now. Again, in one sense, you could almost ask, which it seems like he's sort of questioning here at the bottom, is, can this forum even exist anymore? I mean, he says, I created this forum in 2008 to help men fornicate. Well, if he believes fornicating is wrong, he either basically has to delete the forum, or he has to try to, as he says, retrofit it for a different purpose. But I'm just wondering what kind of, you're talking about a witness here. to me, what kind of witness is it? Is it, if somebody says, well, yes, I believe in Jesus, but here's my forum where, people are talking about how to fornicate and they're encouraging others to go out and do it. And, having all kinds of, premarital sex and everything like that, something that scripture's against. But, I'm a Christian, even though I've got this forum that promotes all this stuff. I mean, that, again, I don't know, that would seem like it would be creating a lot of confusion.
Well, I mean, I don't take responsibility for what other people say. It's basically how I'd handle that.
Except for if, again, you created this forum for that purpose, which is what he did here. This forum was created for that purpose by his own words.
Yeah, I actually agree. With you. Now that you kind of put it that way, I just don't like Roosh. I just don't think. I don't see why people would be there anyways. If why traditional Christians would go to a Roosh forum. It just
that's a good
weird.
question too.
Well, again, and not somebody that's. I have an account at the Roosh forum, but that's basically because I was a writer at Reaction, and there was like a private reaction forum segment where we all posted. I don't believe I posted on the Roosh forum once. Maybe I have over the years. I don't think I have.
Okay, but Bechtloff, you don't pretend to be like a hardcore trad ultra Puritan.
But
guys.
what I would say is I have taken an interest in game stuff over the years. Well, I think people can be really autistic, hyper focused on it. I mean, game is a tool. To the extent you believe it works or not, it's a tool to attract women. A tool is neither immoral or moral in itself. It's amoral. I mean, you can hammer a nail into a wall, or you can hammer a nail into someone's skull. It doesn't make the hammer good or evil. I don't think there's anything good or evil about game inherently.
Well,
you can, in theory, use it to find a wife. You could, in theory, use it to build a harem.
Well, I guess that's where I would have to say is it depends on a tool for what. There are some tools that do have a specific purpose in mind, and they really don't have any other purpose. They're very bad at it. I mean, a post hole digger is great for digging, post holes. It really isn't much of a tool for anything else. It has a very specific purpose. If game, the specific purpose of game that you're talking about here is it's designed to, persuade women to sleep with you, and that's predominantly what it's for. And then if you think that, well, getting a woman to sleep with you or just sleeping with a woman who's not your wife is wrong, then, I mean, now again, if that's not what it is, I mean, so I guess, how would you define game?
I don't think game is getting a woman to sleep with you. I think it's just the art of attracting a woman.
Well, in that case, then they can still talk about that. That's one of the things you can discuss, meeting women with the intention of entering a relationship with them. Right. So, I mean, couldn't that be included in your definition of game?
But here's the thing, though. If I go to a game forum, whether you're trad Christian or not, you have to understand there's a lot of reasons people are going to want to learn how to use that tool. So, yeah, if you go to the Roosh forum, you should understand, some people are going to want to learn how to bang sluts. Hang on a second. I got some super chats got to read. Dashing Rogue since $4.99 says he seems to want to protect other people from himself by controlling others. This is a form of projection. He is scared of his old habits and bedfellows. Tom Bombadil sends $4.99 says the red pill body of work has already been laid. He isn't suppressing any new thought. I don't think there's any new thought in that area for a long time. I mean, honestly, I've read a lot of game stuff over the years, and I mean, a lot of it's horse shit. It really is. And I'm preaching to the choir as much as anything else, but 90% of game is, learn to stand up straight and hit the gym.
Not act like a weirdo.
Yeah, try to not act like a spurg.
Mm-hmm.
Be an interesting person.
I mean, basically, all the game crap you could learn in a blog or something is icing on the cake,
But no, just I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong. Yeah, Tom, I think you're right on this one. I guess just for my part, I get annoyed when there's just what I feel excessive public displays of emotion over certain things. It's like whenever somebody dies, particularly in Canada, and suddenly everybody like makes it their like thing where they just talk about it constantly and they like fake grief. Just sometimes things like this kind of annoy me. I don't
Oh,
know if that makes any sense.
No, I agree with that, and I think there's a thing with conservatives, which somebody else made a comment about this, where conservatives are in so much need of validation. I guess because we're sort of pushing against the main culture that we're willing to lift up anybody who tends to sort of even hint at reflecting our views. This is why people like Dave Rubin get so popular, or Sargon, or anything like that. I mean, in large part, they're sort of and Milo Yiannopoulos on the one hand, right? He espoused some conservative things. Oh, let's lift him up. Jordan Peterson, the dude's essentially a liberal. He just recognizes that men are men and women are women, and yet he's lifted up. Oh man, he's the pastor to the atheists and all this stuff. So I agree with that, and I think it's a problem. I think that's why, in one sense, there's so much infighting, quote unquote, amongst conservatives, is because we're lifting up people just because they espouse a couple of conservative ideas, but they themselves really aren't conservative.
Well, it's just kind of I think a general issue with just our side in general is we've been so gaslit by the left. It's just very difficult sometimes to know which way is up.
Yeah, fair enough.
But no, I would agree. I think that makes sense. Sorry, somebody in the chat saying, why do people hate Sargon? He might be an influential MEP. Do we want to talk about that at all?
I gotta be honest. I kind of like watching Sargon's run for MAP. I don't think he'll win, and I'm no fan of Sargon, but watching him just like shit on the media is extremely amusing.
I have mixed feelings about Sargon. I've never hated him. Like I made fun of him a lot, but that's just because he was spurging out. I don't know. I give him credit for actually putting his money where his mouth is. Like he joined UKIP. I thought it was just going to be a fad. I just thought it was going to be like Gamergate or something. He was going to leave. So once again, I'm perfectly willing to admit I was wrong, and I do respect him for running a legitimate political campaign.
I agree with that.
Trying.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I don't know. I don't have any feeling sort of one way or the other. I guess my only critique of Sargon though is I don't think he's thought through a lot of the positions that he has. I think he sort of he seems to be someone who sort of focuses on the fruit of a tree without really looking at the root of it, So, like again, when he was criticizing feminism and feminists and stuff, he was just sort of looking at the very easy to see fruit, but he didn't see how those thoughts, how that fruit was produced, looking at, what actually makes up feminism, what are the presuppositions, the core ideas that lead to what he's seeing here. And I think they has the sort of similar issue with his own values and beliefs, as he sort of says, oh, we know these are good for society, but it doesn't really go, it's very surface level on that point. He doesn't get deeper with it. That would be a critique that I have of Sargon, which I mean, other people, like the Distributus, has pointed this out.
My issue with Sargon, well, not my issue, but just my analysis of him is he's very much like George R.R. Martin, the guy who writes, for those of you who don't know, who writes Game of Thrones. They're people who seem to be at war with themselves. And on one level, they kind of agree with us. On another level, they don't. And some of that is a genuine conflict. Some of that is the social circles they're in. Some of it is what they've built their career upon. And some of it is it just, you can see this deep conflict within them. And I just have always felt that with Sargon, that because like if we remember the one time he was kind of getting involved with the alt-right, and then he just kind of, to me at least, it felt like he's like, oh, I'm in too deep. And then he went and posted all the gay porn on Twitter to try to piss people off.
I think part of it with a guy like Sargon, and you find this in guys that are sort of politically homeless or in the middle, is, and I find myself, I do this a little bit. You go in deep with this one group because you agree with them on a lot of issues, and after time goes on, the things you don't agree with them begin to irritate you more and more, to the point where you just find like, you know what? No, fuck these guys. I'm kind of sick of them. And I have to admit, I fall into that trap myself sometimes, where I'm sort of quiet about my problems with a group because I'm just, Like it was like that with the trad Catholics. I had so many trad Catholics on this show for so long because I grew them a lot of stuff, and I was just sort of brushed off some of the issues. And after a while, I was like, "No, I'm kind of tired of holding my tongue on the things where I disagree with them." Now, I didn't spam fucking gay interracial porn at them or something dumb like that, but after a while, it's like, no, I'm kind of dumb. I'm kind of done with not asking these questions.
But like, just to restate it, I do respect him for actually like going out and campaigning. He probably would have become an MEP last time, but UKIP has basically died out because Farage left and everyone else left, and now they're all voting for the Brexit party. So
What's Farage's problem with him? Because Farage really doesn't seem to like Sargon, though. What's does anyone know what his predominant issue is with Sargon?
I think it's just sort of finding him embarrassing.
Okay.
it could be they're both very egotistical people.
Hmm.
I could see, like, once again, this is me doing armchair psychology. I could see, as far as Farage goes, he doesn't like having another big name.
Okay, I didn't know if he had just like if there was any particular like policies or moral positions or anything like that that Sargon had that Farage specifically disagreed with. I don't know if it was like if it was just like you said he finds them embarrassing or whatever they're two egos clashing.
So real quick, and I'm going to bring John Steele on. I was trying to find some of the other comments on this Roosh forum that I wanted to read, but I'm going to read one by somebody I used to know, goes by the name of Arini. He's responding to somebody else wrote, the big problem I have with this is feminists are celebrating today regarding the Roosh forum rule changes. And Arini says, those people celebrate everything. Men go see Miss Marvel, they celebrate. Men refuse to see Miss Marvel, they celebrate. They're living in subjective reality. As long as they proclaim something as a victory, they can pretend it is. The objective reality is this forum is completely irrelevant to them. They're never going to meet a man who posts here, and our effect upon society, if it exists at all, is purely responsive to silly provocations they make, such as not seeing Miss Marvel. Big whoop. He brings up Marvel more than I do. That they even care what Roosh is doing is both foolish and sad. Now, this is the fun part right here. He says, let me tell you something about loyalty. I used to be pretty popular on YouTube until someone flagged a bunch of my videos with false claims, and YouTube backed it up, claiming I was spamming comments on other videos. Do you know what happened with many of my biggest fans and supporters? They didn't follow me over to other platforms. Instead, they went over to YouTube channels that were making fun of me and joined in. To think all I sacrificed for such fickle love.
For the movement.
Oh, jeez. They didn't follow me. They just made fun of me for no reason.
We could have saved the West.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer.
They were all making fun of me for no reason.
I mean, once again, I think one of the most fascinating aspects of this whole thing is how he's unable to acknowledge any of it was his fault. Like, looking back on it, because I've been through a lot of therapy in my life. And one of the main things is you have to be able to see your own flaws, and you have to go, okay, maybe part of that relationship was my bad. Maybe part of that was that kind of thing. So I just, he has no ability to see that. He has no ability to even say like he doesn't have to say I'm a bad person. He could just say, okay, I got caught up in the moment. I kind of went too far in some places. I shouldn't have done so. Like, he could just say that, but he legitimately believes, and Bechtloff, you know him better than I do, that he did absolutely nothing wrong, and everyone just spontaneously.
Oh, not to rehash a ton of stuff, but yeah, I have seen remarkable feats of intellectual gymnastics from him as he's desperate to find any explanation for what happened other than I acted like a retard and people laughed at me.
Like for me, because I kind of defended him, or was at least neutral. Well, the reason I threw him under the bus was that stream he did where he talked about where he defended pornography. And just in his general attitude towards calling all the people who disagree with him like virgins and incels, while saying he was like a traditional Christian. But yeah,
I've never thrown him under the bus. Now, I criticized his video that he did, Luke and I did, and with Chris, when he was going on and basically just insulting Protestants. Now, again, I said that he lied on that video, and eventually I took that down. Who knows anyway, but that was always my issue. And of course, the biggest thing with that was that when he would talk to us, he would always be very nice and, oh, I respect you guys. I wish, want you Protestants back, so yada, yada, yada. Then he goes on this other stream and, insults us to no end. And again, as far as I know, still hasn't apologized for it, which is fine. It's not a big deal. But as far as the rest of the stuff, like I said, I don't really care. I'm sorry his channel got
I've reached a point, and it's probably too knee jerk, but I've reached a point where I'm just really done with a lot of the arrogance and a lot of the people just climbing up their own ass out there. And I think that's really what rubbed me the wrong way about Roosh's thing here. Is that's what it read to me. It read as extremely arrogant, and I'm just really done with that stuff anymore. And frankly, I look back at a lot of the stuff I was involved in, and a lot of the people I've defended over the years, and a lot of these movements, and I'm just embarrassed at a lot of it. It's just. I'm not going to say I'm black-pilled or something, but I'm just sort of looking back at this and like, what?
No, can I chime in here?
Sure.
I mean,
how's it going? How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I really wanted to come on earlier. Pastor Tom, by the way, hey, Pastor Tom, a long time since we spoke, man. We gotta have a one-on-one again.
Sounds good.
I pretty much agree with like 99.9% of everything Pastor Tom said. As far as like people's questioning Roosh's conversion, by your own admission here, no one knows the man. So I think that is like the height of arrogance. You don't even know the guy, and yet you're questioning his conversion. I mean, I can't think of any more fart huffing than that.
I'm not questioning the sincerity of his conversion. I'm questioning the type of Christianity that he's converted to.
He hasn't even said what type of Christianity he's converted to. I think he's still trying to sort that out. So, I mean, if he joined your church, then you'd be cool with it. I mean,
well, no. Look, and the other thing is, look, no. I'm not digging through a man's personal life here. I'm discussing the things that a public figure has made public. So, if they're not to be discussed, then don't put them out there.
He didn't say he's a Catholic. He didn't say he is an Orthodox. I mean, he's actually, since he's gone down this road, he's gone down this Christian road, he's even said some bad things about, like in I know one of his videos that someone asked him in the chat about Catholicism, and he basically said any institution that's centralized like that is going to initially set itself up to be corrupted, because you get, if you get one, you get one corrupt pope, then just the nature of the hierarchical system of Catholicism, you can screw everything up, right?
In that regard.
Well, yeah, that's what he said. I mean, he directly pointed it out. Now, the exact specifics of his theology we don't know, and he may be sorting this out. He's finding it. So if anything, you guys are all brothers in Christ. If anything, you should be someone is. If anything, you guys should be encouraging this. If you're, I mean, I'm not a Christian, so I don't really have a dog. Jesus fuck. I'm not a Christian.
That better not be someone wanting to fornicate with you, John.
No, it's it's British James. Come on.
Well, we haven't ruled anything out then, have we?
Yeah. Right. But my point is that now, as far as his forum goes, I think he handled it as diplomatically as he could regarding the way he gave a time limit on it. Now, you said he's like someone else in your Discord. I've also seen that chat. They said that they were banned because of something else that they said in another forum. First off, that could be bullshit. It could be he was banned because some of the shit he said in Roosh's forum, and then he went over to the other forum, and he just made that assumption.
I said I don't know, but I said
right. Yeah, but I was just saying. I mean, stuff you don't. I mean, just repeating any sort of gossip is. So
well, I know the person who said that, and I'm inclined to agree. I'm inclined to believe them, even if I don't know 100%. So that's why I said, yeah, this is what I heard. I don't
Roosh
know,
doesn't
but-
strike me as the type of guy that goes around looking at other forums and tracking down, especially if they're obscure people. They're not, huge names or something like that. So I really don't think that I question that. And not that this guy was banned. I don't question that. But the reason he was banned, I do.
Real quick, super chat. Charles Max says, "Damn, homie, back then you was the man, homie. The fuck happened to you regarding Roosh? Good evening, Bechtloff and Steele."
Good evening.
Yep.
But I just want to circle back on Roosh because I think this is the most popular thing. This is what everybody's talking about, and everybody's trying to make heads or tails of it. And I don't know Roosh at all. I never. I think the only communication was I sent a question in, like a super chat question, into one of his hangouts. That's the only communication we've ever had. And funny enough, it was about Davis Arini. But the idea that that he can't do whatever he wants with his forum, I think that's ridiculous. And like I said, I think he's handling it really diplomatically. He's actually putting a time thing on it.
Well, no, I'm going to correct that again. Nobody's saying he can't.
No.
I'm not talking about what I think.
No one. You're missing my point. My point. I'm not saying that you said he can't. I'm saying that it's for him to not do it would be not only whether he can or can't. Of course he can. It's his fucking forum. It has his name on it. It's a Roosh V forum. Now, if he's a Catholic and he has a Roosh V forum and he has a section of, how to bang chicks in the ass, when that's something that his own moral code is against, how the fuck could he leave it up? That would be ridiculous.
That's something that I guess I see the world a little differently than that, because I try to have a very, very loose hand on my Discord, for example. Because I don't like telling people what they can talk about. I don't like telling people what they can say. There's all sorts of stuff on my Discord. I wouldn't particularly want it there, but I allow it. Whatever. I don't care. I don't like telling people what to do. So I don't view it as though I'm responsible for everything on my Discord. And if I had the Bechtloff forum and there were a bunch of people talking about shit on there that I wasn't cool with, provided it's not something illegal or whatever. It's
well, that's fine. That's fine for you. But do you have problems if someone?
I
had a forum, like the John Steele forum, and I talked about things, like things that interest me, and I approached religion and spirituality from a non-Christian view, and I just didn't want to. I didn't really want to hear about Catholics and Protestants arguing about whether or not you should pray to the Virgin Mary. I was like, look, that's not. If you want to talk about that, go to Bechtloff's forum. I don't want it on mine. What's the problem here? It's his forum. He can do what he wants. Just because you don't do that, why do you have a problem with someone else that does it?
I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying.
I'm not saying can't. I'm saying should.
Yeah, I'm just saying I think it's kind of lame. That's basically what I'm saying. I think it's kind of lame to just take a really hard stance on what everyone can talk about, and I just think it's better to let people have as much free reign as you can give them.
Well, then you turn it into Gab. That's where it you need censorship. If something is going to
at the very least, I'd like to have a website that doesn't crash every 3 seconds. So hopefully, I'm not like Gab.
Well, no, but the point is the same. Funny joke, but the point is the absolute same. If you're going to have a forum that has your name and your brand on it, and it's in direct contradiction with your own personal moral code, how could you not remove it?
Well, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of things going on in my Discord that I don't approve of.
Yeah, okay, but I think one of the difference here, though, Chris, is that you created your Discord for the purpose of people coming there and talking about a variety of things, whereas Roosh created his forum for people to come there and, in this instance, talk about a very particular thing, and now he is opposed to that particular thing, so he's changing the forum to better reflect his morals. And I think that's an important distinction. He doesn't just have a forum where it's like, come here and talk about whatever. It was, again, as he said, I created this to help teach people how to fornicate or whatever. I made it in 2008 to, help, men fornicate. And he's like, well, now I want to change that. So, I mean, again, it's a difference in the purpose. His forum had a different purpose even back in 2008 when he created it than your Discord does. And now it has a different purpose as well based off of his conversion, his change of heart. Mind
and spirit.
Well, like I said, nobody's saying he can't. I just think it's.
Well, we're not saying he can't. I mean, we're talking about you. I don't know why you keep using the word can't. We're talking about should. There needs to be a congruency about a person, and at least I think so. If you're an honest person, regardless of your faith, you should be congruent. If you're a Christian and you're like a porn star, to bring back I think what Pastor Tom was talking about, I think there's an incongruency there. I mean, I don't know if you guys would agree with that. If you're a girl and you take 3 dicks up your ass from strangers for money, and then just because you go to church on Sunday, does that mean you're a Christian?
I would say probably not. No.
I don't know. I mean, that's I know there's supposedly Christian porn stars. I don't know how they square that circle, but whatever. But the
same way there are women pastors.
There's we could get off on there's lesbian, there's gay priests now, Catholic priests, right? Even though the Catholic
are there straight priests?
Whatever. But let's not go down that rabbit hole just yet. But that's my whole point. So I really don't understand. I understand why people who are just interested in fornicating are upset about this, and that's fine. But there's plenty of other places you go on the internet if that's what you're interested. Hey, Rollo Tomasi is probably happy about this. A bunch of people are going to go to his 21 con and he can make more money on it. I really don't see how this is an event. If anything, and there's another thing I wanted to bring up too, because I wanted to come in earlier when you first got into the Rouge thing, because that's really what I wanted to speak about. But there's another problem I see with the idea of hero worship, where people become, that's kind of something that not hero worship, but kind of things that happened with Davis and a few other people you had mentioned, like where you were kind of falling into the black pill a little bit. You saw how you defended people and stuff like that. And you have to realize that, we don't really know these people. All these people are human. All these people are, to use the Christian term, they're all sinners. They're all flawed. They're all imperfect. So the thing about Rouge is people kind of gave him like a godlike status. And I think that's very dangerous to do with anyone. If you're a Christian, you only believe in one God.
Oh, I agree with that. I've never really been on the Rouge is a very polarizing figure where everyone either loves him or hate him, it seems like, and I've never really fallen in either camp. There's a lot I like about him. There's a lot about him I find cringy. So.
Right, but we're just talking about his actions, here and relating to this forum. If we were going to discuss Rouge as a whole, he's been prolific in this area of the internet for 11 years, I think, right, or more. So there's a huge breadth of work. He's written a lot of books. God knows how many posts and he's done on other people's YouTubes. He's done his own YouTubes. There's a huge breadth of work on Rouge. And there's been an evolution over here. I do know actually some of the details of his conversion, but I don't think I'm allowed to discuss them publicly.
If you know private details about him that he hasn't made public, no, I don't want to discuss them here. Okay. Like I said, that's the big thing. We're discussing, things that a public figure has made public. That's why I don't have any real problem discussing them. I've been very vocal about that over the last several months, that there's, if a public figure makes something public, I feel it's fair game to discuss, no matter how personal it is. But if they haven't, I leave it on the table.
Right. Yeah. So I wasn't going to say it anyway, but because I don't think I have permission to say it. but I'm just saying there's more. Sometimes there's more going on here. Than you know. And I mean, there always is, right? There always, we don't, you like you said, you don't really know him. I mean, you had some communication for him when you worked with him at was it Reaction? But as far, I don't know if you had any more insight into his personality, his character than anybody else would have.
No, like I said, I don't really know the guy.
Yeah, so I don't get this whole shit on Rouge thing, except maybe it's just, maybe you're just trying to make it into good radio. I don't know.
Like I said, it just rubbed me the wrong way. It just came off really kind of arrogant, and it just sort of comes off. I'm gonna throw people off my forum for not adhering to a system, a moral system I adopted 3 seconds ago, and it just rubs me the wrong way.
But that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, he can do it. I mean, I'm not saying he can't, and maybe eventually he should, but it just came off as rather arrogant to me, and that's something that
well, you're familiar with the story of, well, I'm sure you are. I know for a fact Tom is the story of Saul, when he became Paul. I mean, it was literally a lightning bolt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, and immediately everything changed for him. And he went from literally one extreme, maybe pass the time. You want to fill people in on that little, that story?
Sure. So, Saul was a Jew and could possibly have been a Pharisee, although that's not confirmed. But he was someone who was very much against the Christian faith. He was there when Stephen was martyred, stoned to death, holding the coats for the people. He was very zealous in making sure that the Christians were being arrested and, in some cases, killed. He was on his way to Damascus with further instructions on how to better hunt down Christians and to persecute him, when he was suddenly seeing a bright light, and he saw the resurrected Christ, and Jesus said to him, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" And then Saul was blinded from that, and after that experience, he became a Christian and changed his name to Paul. And of course, series of events later on, he began his ministry, and of course, as most people know, wrote the majority of the New Testament, and was predominantly the missionary to the Gentiles, basically continuing Peter's work. And the whole book, the book of Acts, after Peter, about the second half of the book of Acts, is predominantly more about Paul and his mission. So. And
this is a man that's probably responsible for more conversions to Christianity than any of his peers of the time period. And this guy literally went from being the equivalent, like the ancient equivalent of a freaking bounty hunter to hunt down Christians, to someone that you could argue saved more souls than anyone else of his temporal peers.
Well, I mean, you could look at the case of Zacchaeus too. That's another person who made a very quick change right as soon as it happened.
Yeah, but I mean, so that's my point. Is this when people go, there's nothing wrong, at least from what I see in Christian scripture, and I'm not the expert you are, Tom, but there's nothing wrong with going extreme about it, like totally getting in line, totally being congruent with your beliefs.
I would say that when you believe that something is wrong, when you understand something's wrong, or it's not in line with following, if you say I'm a follower of Jesus and you think this is not in line with following Jesus, to do it then is sinful. At that point, so because you're violating your conscience. And again, to kind of further expand on that, I believe that your conscience should be based upon what Scripture says. There are some points here where, Scripture doesn't specifically speak on something. And so again, at that point, there is some freedom there. But if you feel that it's wrong, Scripture does say that, you shouldn't do it. So
let's be clear. All Scripture is the Word of God. So you don't even say Scripture, you can go directly to God and say, is it in line with God's will?
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So, I mean, that's all Scripture is, right? It's kind of a man putting God's will into written word. And I don't mean that as a negative thing. I'm just saying that that's what Scripture is. I mean, the reason Scripture is because it's God's will. That's it. So I really don't understand if you're a Christian how anyone has trouble with Roosh being a Christian, unless you're quibbling over he's not the right kind of Christian. Like, maybe the problem is for some people that he's, we're not sure what he is yet, whether he's Orthodox or he's Catholic or maybe he is still searching. I don't know.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, like you said, I don't know him. So, I mean, he's saying, well, I'm a Christian. Well, but again, from my perspective here, this is somebody I've never spoken to. I've never really, again, very, very small knowledge of anything about him. So there are tons of people out there who say I'm a Christian. I'm not going to automatically, just based off of that alone, say, okay, well, yeah, obviously you're my brother and sister in Christ. I'm not going to doubt it either. It's the thing. I'm not affirming nor denying whether or not he's a Christian. When I'm literally saying, okay, he says he is. That's all I know. And until I can see something else that would give more evidence one way or the other, I can't realize it's okay. Well, he says he's a Christian. I'm going to, at the moment, sort of take him at his word until we sort of see, where else is he coming from? Because again, he could say, he's a Christian, but what he really believes is, Jesus was a man who became God. He's really a Mormon. At that point, I would say, well, no, you've made a mistake here, right? Or again, something like that. But like I said, a lot of Mormons would call themselves Christians, whereas I would disagree on that, just because, again, who Jesus is. So
right, yeah, but then we're kind of, let's not get into the. I totally see your point.
That wouldn't. I mean, to me, that's why I picked at those, because that's not minutia. That is a fundamental difference, right? There's a difference between believing Jesus is a man who became God versus believing Jesus is God who became man. Like that's very fun. That leads you to very different places. You start at different places and you're going to different places.
Yeah, Jesus. I mean, that's kind of one of the tenets of mainline Christianity is Jesus is the Son of God, is God the Son of the Trinity, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And humans have trouble comprehending that, but
for sure.
But my point is that a lot of people are one of the blowbacks I was seeing online, and not from you, Chris, or necessarily your Discord, but a lot of other people saying, oh, this guy was this biggest fornicator, and now he's always found Jesus and stuff like that. I said, well, look, in the Bible, in Scripture, there's examples of that.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and question the ability of somebody to change and all. I think where I have a problem, and I understand it's his forum and all, but there's a difference between I've changed and I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do X, Y, or Z, and I've changed and I want to tell other people not to do that they can't do it. And again, it just rubs me the wrong way, and that's mostly a temperament thing where I'm the kind of guy that's just not inclined to want to tell other people what to do.
And I mean, I hear what you're saying, Chris, and I don't want to beat a dead horse. I guess for me, where I would say is I don't see him going and telling these other people, you can't do those things. I think what I see him saying is, you can't do these things on my forum because I feel like I'm responsible for this, and I don't want to. Again, because I feel responsible for my forum and what happens here, I don't want to be responsible for people doing things that I'm morally opposed to. So, I mean, like I said, because I didn't see anything in that thing that said, you're an evil, sinful person or that kind of stuff. He's just saying, here's what I think. As such, I'm not going to allow it here because it's my forum. I mean, and again, maybe you don't see a difference there. For me, I guess, and that could be just where we disagree. But for me, I see a difference between that.
I don't see, and I get that people feel this way, but it's just not something I understand. I don't understand feeling responsible for what somebody said on your forum or what somebody says in my chat. I don't take any responsibility for what you, John, or Arjun have said tonight. I don't. That's never a road I want to go down because, hey, I know my political enemies. Oh boy, they love it when they can get you by. Hey, this guy that you hung out with said something once. I don't feel a responsibility now. If he does, I guess that's different. But I don't understand that mindset. That I feel responsible for everything that's going on around me in my vicinity that other people are doing.
Well, maybe it's not that he feels. I don't know if he said anywhere in there. I could be wrong. If he said that he feels responsible, I don't know if he does. Maybe he just doesn't want to give a vehicle to that because, you know what I'm saying? There's difference from taking responsibility for something and facilitating it.
Real quick, Tom Bombadil sends $4.99. He says, John Steele, does Rush's conversion have to do with his sister's death? I don't think John Steele can comment on that, but
well, I'm not going to.
yeah,
I had to don't comment, and I'm validate if I'm. That's not what I was referring to, but I'm not going to comment on that.
Yeah, I got to read a super chat, but I didn't think anybody wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, well, so I mean, again, like bringing about, he said, I also realized that the majority of my published materials and online platforms led men into sin or enabled them to partake in sin. I no longer want this to occur, so I'm implementing 2 new rules on the forum that are effective June 1st. To me, that, like I said, I read that as a sense that he's saying, I have done these things. I'm taking responsibility for these things that have led people into sin or have enabled them to partake in sin. I don't want that to incur in the things that I'm responsible for, which is why I'm enabling the rules. Again, that's how I read that sentence right there.
Yeah, and Tom, don't you feel like that is about as good as you could have handled it? I mean, what
Yeah, no, to me, I mean, like I said, yeah, I don't, because again, on my channel, I mean, y'all have known this who have been on there. I don't allow people to take the name of the Lord. I don't like cussing either a whole lot either. And I try to tell people, please don't cuss, that kind of stuff. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. I set up my rules on my channel.
I think I broke that. Sorry.
Well, but I mean, you apologize when you did it too, and that's. I mean, again, I'm not like iron fisted. You make a mistake, but I still try to hold the rule and try to enforce it, though. I mean, so again, I set that up for my channel.
Right.
If someone's
when I'm on someone else's channel, and if they have these guidelines, or I mean, you're not like you said, hardline. Let's call them guidelines, not rules. You kind of try to be in line with them, unless you're a total dick.
The Pirates Code is more like guidelines than I know.
But you know what I mean.
What happened to Argent?
Oh yeah, Argent had the split. He didn't want to interrupt. He sent me a message. He's actually at a con this weekend, so he's kind of busy.
He's not in Poland, is he?
No, he's not in Poland. I don't think.
That's a 21 con is going on then.
It's a 21 con. No, I think he's just at some Animu con. All right. Well, there really wasn't any other stories this week. So, anybody else have anything they want to bring up for the show? Or
well, I was curious as if there's someone that if somebody else from the someone wanted to call in and give their perspective.
Well, British James wanted to call in, but then I think he's too drunk to figure out how to work Discord or how to work the Hangouts, because he was like, "Give me 20 minutes," and that was like 30 minutes ago.
Well, he was on a bus. He said, "I'm getting on a bus, and I'm going to call you." And that's when he kept calling me while I was on your show, and I was hanging up. But
yeah, I had a bunch of. I had a bunch of Skype notifications from him pinging on my phone there. No, I think that's it for this week.
Okay.
All right. All right. Well, I think this was a good show. I like when people argue. It always goes well. Like, seriously, I like the back and forth. That makes for an entertaining show. All right. Thank you to everyone who sent super chats. If you otherwise enjoy the content, you can check out the PayPal's, Patreon, and Amazon wish list. All ways you can support the show. And you know what? Real quick, I'll throw a link to the Discord in the chat, because you should all join the Discord. There's new rules in the Discord, though. You're not allowed to talk about my show. That's what June 1st. Just a heads up.
When do they go into effect?
Yeah, when do they go into effect, Chris?
June 1st.
June 1st.
But of 2021, just randomly. You'll have to, and I'm not going to mention it ever again until then. Just after that, just start banning people. Yeah, it'll be fun. All right. That's about all we got for this week. I want to thank you all for listening. John, thanks for calling in. Argent, thanks for being on. And Pastor Tom, as always, thanks for being on. And that's all we got for this week. Bechtloff out.